Hello and welcome to my Yu-Gi-Oh channel. So today we're looking at the new TCG Forbidden Unlimited list. This has come into effect as of Tuesday, December the 15th. And we're just going to be covering why these cards have been potentially banned, semi-limited or unlimited. So the first card is Dragon Buster Destruction Sword. It's a dark attribute dragon type tuner effect monster. It's a level 1 with 400 attack and 300 defense. The effect is you can target one Buster Blader you control, equip this monster from your hand or field to that target. While this card is equipped to a monster, your opponent cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck. While this card is equipped to a monster, you can special summon this equipped card. You can only use this effect of Dragon Buster Destruction Sword once per turn. Now this card is a menace to deal with. People are probably going to be a little confused about why this is a big issue. I'll tell you. There is a link monster called Union Carrier, which lets essentially any monster that can equip become basically a Union monster, and to anything. So you can get that trigger effect where potentially you can stop your opponent from summoning anything from their extra deck. This is traditionally meant for only Buster Blader, the archetype. So being able to have that flexibility to just use it whenever you want by just bringing Union Carrier out is just too powerful. Being able to stop your opponent from doing that, it would have been one thing if it just stopped both players from their extra decks, because at least you could argue, okay, it's balanced. It gives your opponent some chance to kind of counter you, but this is too far. It's too strong for you, and you're still going to be running all those extra deck monsters. And it's one of these annoying rogue strategies that's been developed, and it's one of those that kind of has to be removed from the game. It's a shame that it has to be gone, because really, when I think about it, it would have been much easier just to have gotten rid of Union Carrier. But it's one of the newer cards, so I can understand why Konami, money reasons, they don't want to get rid of that. It's just a shame because anyone who is traditionally a Buster Blader player wants to run this card and now cannot because it's too degenerate at the moment. Okay, so the next one is Link Cross. It's a light attribute Cyverse type Link monster, and it has one Link arrow on the bottom, 900 attack. It does require a Link 2 or higher Link monster to summon, and if this card is Link summoned, you can activate this effect. Special summon a number of Link tokens. They're Cyverse light attribute level 1 with 0 attack and defense, up to the Link rating of the monster used for this card's Link summon. Also, you cannot use Link tokens as Link material for the rest of this turn. You can only use this effect of Link Cross once per turn. This card is particularly nasty to have to deal with. It's one of those token spamming cards. You might be considering, oh, what's the big issue? But things like Scapegoat have even become nightmares. When people discovered that you could start using tokens as, link materials, that's when things became crazy. Even things like very old cards like Stray Lambs, Scapegoat, all became a lot more viable. You had the big issues to do with Grinder Golem as well, Firewall Dragon. All those combinations were, nightmares because of the way Link monsters could be summoned. Of course, it does mean you're determined to summon this based on what you've used before. So the higher the Link rating you've used, the more tokens you get, so you can potentially get another Link 4 out or something to that effect, Link 3, Link 4. It's too flexible and too viable a strategy, and it's just one of those generic cards that tends to be splashed into absolutely every deck you see run. Interesting thing about it, the design of it, it does look a little bit like a card which was used by... It was, it wasn't the Society of Light. It was the Light Brigade. It was Serena's group of mob who were in I think it was a tag team against Cyrus and Hasselbury, and they used a card which looked quite similar to this to redirect attacks. That's just a little bit of fun trivia for you. And the last of the forbidden cards is Smoke Grenade of the Thief. It's an equipped spell with the effect when this card is destroyed by a card effect while equipped to a monster, look at your opponent's hand and discard one card from their hand. Okay, I'm not particularly sure, well, I'm not confident about why this has been banned, but I think it's to do with some of the Fire Noble Knights and the Assault plays. Basically, the idea is that you equip it and then you get rid of it, and then you're constantly being able to recover and recycle this card. You're able to rip your opponent's hand to pieces where they've got nothing left, or if they do, you've seen basically everything they have. It provides far too much advantage, and it was just too efficient to be remaining within the game. Now, True King's Return is the only thing that's been put on the semi-limited list, which means there must be a reason for it. It is a continuous trap with the effect if this card is sent from the field, from the spell and trap zone to the graveyard, you can target one monster on the field and destroy it. You cannot activate the following effects of True King's Return in the same chain. You can target one True Draco or True King monster in your graveyard, special summon it in defense position. Also, for the rest of his turn, you cannot special summon. Or during your opponent's main phase, you can immediately after this effect resolves, tribute summon one True Draco or True King monster face up. So this card was quite a lot of flexibility for the True Kings. Firstly, if this card was ever sent to the graveyard, which is basically what those cards do, to summon they can not only just use monsters, but they can use their actual back row to do this. And it's just a case of sending this card, so the second you did that, you could pop one of your opponent's monsters if you wanted to, or you could always just use the effects to recover one of your lost True Draco or True King monsters, or to just tribute summon during your opponent's turn, whatever took your fancy. As for the newly unlimited cards, these include Seer, Malabranch of the Burning Abyss. It's a dark attribute fiend type level 3 with 1600 attack and 1200 defense. If you control a monster that is not a Burning Abyss monster, destroy this card. You can only use one of these effects of Seer, Malabranch of the Burning Abyss per turn, and only once that turn. If you control no spell or trap cards, you can special summon this card from your hand. And if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target one Burning Abyss monster in your graveyard, accept itself, and special summon it. I don't know why they've reintroduced the Burning Abyss archetype. I suppose maybe there's enough reason to not have to get rid of them anymore. Maybe the deck has weakened considering that this came out during the Zeal period and that there's been enough additional support and different types of decks that can counter this to make it a lot weaker and less viable. That's the only reason I can think of it. Graf Malabranch of the Burning Abyss is a dark attribute fiend type level 3 with 1000 attack and 1500 defense. Its effect is if you control a monster that is not a Burning Abyss monster, destroy this card. You can only use one of these effects of Graf Malabranch of the Burning Abyss per turn and only once that turn. If you control no spell or trap cards, you can special summon this card from your hand. Or if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can special summon one Burning Abyss monster from your deck, except itself. Again, I'm not particularly sure why Burning Abyss is back, but I suppose you've got the new Phantom Knights cards, which work relatively well with this. I think there was the whole deck PK Fire, which is based on the Phantom Knights and this being combined, as they both have rank 3s, which is the purpose of them. Maybe you'll see more support coming down the line. Perhaps this might be a hint in the future. Evergishki Mind August is a water attribute aqua type ritual effect monster. It's a level 6 with 2500 attack and 2000 defense. Its effect is it cannot be normal summoned or set. It must first be ritual summoned. You can ritual summon this card with any Gishki ritual spell card. When this card is ritual summoned, target up to 5 cards in any graveyard, shuffle those targets into the deck. Right, I can understand why this card is back, considering that Pot of Avarice is back. This essentially does the same thing, other than the fact it can affect both yours and your opponent's graveyards, so there's that aspect. But generically speaking, if your opponent isn't really setting things up in the graveyard, it's there mostly to recover your stuff. When you ritual summon, you tend to go through various cards, and the thing is, at least because it targets any 5 cards, it's just not, doesn't have to be monsters, it can be your spells and traps as well. It's a way of recovering for the ritual deck. At the moment, Evergishkis aren't really doing much, nor are the Gishkis, which are part of the archetype. And generally, I don't actually understand why this card has been restricted, when really nowadays it just doesn't need to be. The next card is ABC Dragonbuster. This is a light attribute machine type fusion effect monster. It's a level 8 with 3000 attack and 2800 defense. The fusion materials are A. Assault Core, B. Buster Drake, and C. Crush Wyvern. It must first be special summoned from your extra deck by banishing the above cards you control and or from your graveyard. You do not use polymerization. Once per turn, as a quick effect, you can discard 1 card, then target 1 card on the field and banish it. During your opponent's turn, as a quick effect, you contribute this card, then target 3 of your banished light machine union monsters with different names, special summon them. Out of every decision that Konami has made, this is the one I absolutely don't agree with. Yes, ABC Dragonbuster isn't doing anything at the moment, but I remember when it was prolific, it was an absolute nuisance to deal with. For starters, getting those 3 cards into the graveyard, remember, they don't have to be necessarily on the field, they can be in the graveyard as well as the field. Getting them there through the field spell union hanger, and you had so many types of support, frontline base as well as that special summons union monsters. It just made this card so easy to bring out in the first place. Second, the effect to banish one of the cards it's a quick effect. So long as you can fuel your hand, you're essentially being able to do this once a turn. You're getting rid of your opponent's cards that quickly that they're not going to be able to recover from it. And even third, which I find the most annoying part of it, it's not even the first 2 parts of the effects. The summoning condition, okay, I can accept that. The triggered effect, okay, I can accept that, because once they've used that in the turn, they can't do anything else. If you can extend your play to do something else to get rid of it, that would be fine. It's the third effect which, dodges, which is also the issue. It's similar to something like interdimensional transport, which lets it kind of remove itself from play and then come back. This does the same kind of thing. By bringing it back in 3, you're able to then recover all these cards, because you split them back into their base forms, Assault Core, Buster Drake, Crush Wyvern. Then you can just go into another one, and then you can use its effect again. And it's not a hard once per turn, it's just a nuisance to have to deal with. And then, of course, you've got Pot of Avarice, so you can actually just recover those cards as well. It's not a good idea for them to have this running around along with the Cyber Dragon Infinity. That was the other one. Combine the 2, and that was a massive headache you had to face. And yes, before anyone says, I do know that they can be kaiju'd, I know there are ways of countering this card now, but I can tell you from my experience in the past that at that time it was a nuisance to have to deal with. And of course, speaking of nuisances, this is the final one. Totally awesome. It's a water attribute aqua type Xyz monster. It's a rank 2 with 2200 attack and 0 defense. It requires 2 level 2 aqua type monsters. With the effect, once per turn and during the standby phase, you can detach 1 Xyz material from this card to special summon 1 frog monster from your deck. Once per turn and during either player's turn, when your opponent activates a spell, trap, or monster effect, you can send 1 aqua type monster from your hand or face up from your field to the graveyard, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. Then you can set it to your field. If this card is set to the graveyard, you can target 1 water monster in your graveyard, add it to your hand. The reason why this card is such a nuisance is because it's able to disrupt anything. I know it has to be, it's a once per turn effect, so if you are able to kind of trick your opponent into taking something you don't necessarily need, that's fine, but that's reliant on your opponent, the one that has Totally Awesome, to have no knowledge of what you're playing when you're facing this card. So if they take the wrong card, yes, that's a bad judgment on their part. The nuisances, of course, that means they can use that card against you, depending on what that is. It's painful to have to watch. The card brings itself out relatively easily. You've got a Bahamut Shark, which just turbos this card out, and then of course you've got the Frog Engines, which just bring this out even worse. And of course you've got Pot of Avarice to recover these cards. So you're never going to really run out of totally awesome. It's just going to be a totally annoying situation to deal with. But that's just my opinion on how the list is. If you've got anything you want to add, leave those comments below. If there's anything you feel I've missed, you can also leave those down below as well.